From archaic translation by W.H.D. Rouse. Jataka number 468. Janasandha-Jātaka Thus spoke, etc. This story the master told while living at Jataka monastery, for the instruction of the king of Kosala. At one time, they say the king, intoxicated with power, and devoted to the pleasures of sin, held no court of justice, and grew negligent in attending upon the Buddha. One day he remembered the Dasabala. Thought he, I must visit him. So after breaking his fast, he ascended his magnificent chariot, and proceeding to the monastery, greeted him and took a seat. How is it, great king, asked the Bodhisattva, that you have not showed yourself for so long? Oh, sir, replied the king, I have been so busy, that there has been no opportunity of waiting upon you. Great king, said he, not suitable it is to neglect such as I am, who can give advice, supreme Buddhas, living too in a monastery in front. A king should rule vigilant in all kingly duties, to his subjects like mother or father, forsaking all evil courses, never omitting the 10 virtues of a king. When a king is righteous, those who surround him are righteous also. No marvel were it, in truth, if under my instruction you were to rule in righteousness. But wise men of old, even when there was no teacher to instruct them, by their own understanding established in the 3 times practice of well-doing, stated the law to a great lot of people, and with all their attendants went to the heaven. With these words, at his request, the master told a story of the past. Once upon a time, when Brahmadatta was king in Benares, the Bodhisattva was born as son of his queen wife. They gave him the name of Prince Janasandha. Now when he came of age, and had returned from Taxila, where he had been educated in all accomplishments, the king gave a general pardon to all prisoners, and gave him the viceroyalty. Afterwards when his father died, he became king, and then he caused to be built 6 alms-giving places. At the 4 gates of the city, in the midst of it, and at the palace gate. There day by day he used to distribute 600,000 pieces of money, and stirred up all India with his almsgiving. The prison doors he opened for good and all. The places of execution he destroyed, all the world he protected with the 4 sorts of beneficence, he kept the 5 virtues, observed the holy fast day, and ruled in righteousness. From time to time he would gather together his subjects, and teach the law to them. Give alms. Practice virtue. Righteously follow your business and calling. Educate yourselves in the days of your youth. Gain wealth, do not behave like a village cheat or a dog, be not harsh nor cruel, do your duty in caring for mother and for father, in family life honor your elders. Thus he confirmed lots of people in good living. Once on the holy day, 15th of the fortnight, having undertaken to keep the holy day, he thought to himself, I will teach the law to the lots, for the continual increase of good and blessing to them, and to make them vigilant in their life. Then he caused the drum to beat, and beginning with the women of his own household, gathered together all the people of the city. In the courtyard of his palace he sat, on a splendid couch set apart, beneath a pavilion decorated with jewels, and stated the law in these words. O people of the city! To you I will teach about the practices that will cause you suffering, and these which will not. Be vigilant, and hear with care and attention. The master opened his mouth, a precious jewel among mouths, full of truth, and with a voice sweet as honey explained this address of the king of Kosala. Thus spoke King Janasandha. 10 things in truth there be, which if a man omit to do, he suffers presently. Not to have got nor gathered store in time, the heart torments. To think he looked for no wealth before he afterwards repents. How hard is life for men untaught! He thinks, repenting in pain, that learning, which he now might use, he would not learn before. A slanderer once, dishonest once, a backbiter unkind. Cruel, and harsh was I. Good cause for sorrow now I find. A killer was I, merciless, and to no creature gave. Contemptible. For this much sorrow now I have. When I had many wives to whom I owed their due, I left them for another's wife. which now I dearly regret. When plenty store of food and drink there was, he sorrows in pain. To think he never gave a gift in the old time before. He grieves to think that when he could, he would not care and tend. Mother and father, now grown old, their youth now at an end. To have slighted teacher, monitor, or father, who would try to gratify his every wish, causes deep misery. To have treated Brahmins with neglect, ascetics many a one, holy, and learned, in the past, makes him repent soon. Sweet is austerity performed, a good man honored well. That he did no such thing before it is sad to have to tell. Who these 10 things in wisdom brings to full accomplishment, and to all men his duty does, will never need repent. Thus twice in the month did the great being discourse in the same way to the people. And the people, established in his advice, fulfilled these 10 things, and became destined for heaven. When the master had ended this discourse, he said, "Thus, O great king, wise men of old, untaught and from their own intelligence, stated the law, and established lots in the way to heaven." With these words, he identified the birth. At that time the Buddha's followers were the people, and I was myself King Janasandha. Source: adapted from archaic translation by W.H.D. Rouse. Jataka number 469. Mahā-Kaṇha-Jātaka A, black hound, etc. This story the master told while living at Jataka monastery, about living for the benefit of the world. One day, they say, the brethren as they sat in the hall of truth, were talking together. "Sirs," one would say, "the master, ever practicing friendship towards the lots of the people, has forsaken an agreeable dwelling, and lives just for the good of the world. He has attained supreme wisdom, yet of his own accord takes bowl and robe, and goes on a journey of 18 leagues or more. For the 5 elders he set in rolling the wheel of the righteous path. On the 5th day of the half-month he recited the Anatalakkhana scriptures, and bestowed sainthood upon them all. He went to Uruvela, and to the ascetics with matted hair he showed miracles 3,000 and half a thousand, and persuaded them to join the holy order. At Gayasissa he recited the discourse upon fire, and bestowed sainthood upon 1,000 of these ascetics. To Mahā-Kaṇha-Jātaka, when he had gone forward 3 miles to meet him, after 3 discourses he gave the higher holy orders of disciples. All alone, after the noonday meal, he went a journey of 45 leagues, and then established in the fruit of the 3rd path Pukusa. To meet Mahā-Kaṇha he went forward a space of 2,000 leagues, and bestowed sainthood upon him. Alone, in the afternoon he went a journey of 30 leagues, and established in sainthood that cruel and harsh man Angulimala. 30 leagues also he moved across, and established Alavaka in the fruit of the 1st path, and saved the prince. In the heaven of the 33 he lived 3 months, and taught full comprehension of the righteous path to 800 millions of deities. To Brahma's world he went, and destroyed the false teaching of Baka Brahma, and bestowed sainthood on 10,000 Brahmas. Every year he goes on pilgrimage in 3 districts, and to such men as are capable of receiving, he gives the refuges, the virtues, and the fruits of the different stages. He even acts for the good of snakes and gorilla birds and the like, in many ways. In such words they praised the goodness and worth of the Dasabala's life for the good of the world. The master came in, and asked what they talked of as they sat there. They told him. "And no wonder, brethren," said he. "I who now in my perfect wisdom would live for the world's good, even I in the past, in the days of passion, lived for the good of the world." So saying, he told a story of the past. Once upon a time, in the days of the supreme Buddha Kashyapa, there reigned a king named Usurers. It was a long time after the supreme Buddha Kashyapa had taught the 4 truths, and liberated lots of people from bondage, and had been translated to swell the number of those who dwell in nirvana. And the Dhamma had fallen into decay. The monks gained their livelihood in the 21 unlawful ways. They associated with the nuns, and sons and daughters were born to them. Monks gave up the duties of the monks' order, and nuns gave up the duties of nuns, lay brethren and lay sisters the duties of such. Brahmins did no longer the duties of a Brahmin. Men for the most part followed the 10 paths of evil doing, and as they died thus filled the all states of suffering. Then Saka, observing that no new deities came into being, looked abroad upon the world. And then he perceived how men were born into states of suffering, and that the Dhamma of the Buddha had decayed. What shall I do, now? He wondered. Ah, I have it! Thought he. I will scare and terrify mankind. And when I see they are terrified, I will console them, I will teach the righteous path, I will restore Dhamma which has decayed, I will make it last for another 1,000 years. With this resolve, he made the god Madali into the shape of a huge black hound. Of pure breed, having 4 tusks as big as a plantain, horrible, with a hideous shape and a fat belly, as of a woman ready to be delivered of a child. Him fastening with 5-fold chain, and putting on him a red wreath, he led by a cord. Himself he put on a pair of yellow garments, and bound his hair behind his head, and wore a red wreath. Taking a huge bow, fitted with bowstring of the color of coral, and twirling in his fingers a javelin tipped with adamant, he assumed the aspect of a forester, and descended at a spot 1 league away from the city. The world is doomed to destruction, is doomed to destruction. He called out thrice with a loud sound, so that he terrified the people. And when he reached the entering in of the city, he repeated the cry. The people on seeing the hound were frightened, and hasted into the city, and told the king what had happened. The king speedily caused the city gates to be closed. But Saka overleapt the wall, 18 arm lengths in height, and with his hound stood within the city. The people in terror ran away into the houses, and made the doors fast. Big Blackie gave chase to every man he saw, and scared them, and finally entered into the king's palace. The people who in their fright had taken refuge in the courtyard, ran into the palace, and shut to the door. And as for the king, he with the ladies of his household went up on the terrace. Big Blackie raised his front feet, and putting them in at the window roared a great roar. The sound of his roaring reached from hell to the highest heaven. The whole universe was one great roar. The 3 great roars that were the loudest ever heard in India are these. The cry of King Punnaka in the Punnaka birth, the cry of the snake King Suddasana in the Buddha birth, and this roar in the Mahā-Kaṇha birth, or the story of Big Blackie. The people were terrified and horrified, and not a man of them could say a word to Saka. The king picked up heart, and approaching the window, cried out to Saka, "Ho, huntsman! Why did your hound roar?" Said he, "The hound is hungry." "Well," said the king, "I will order some food to be given him." So he told them to give him his own food, and the food of all his household. The hound seemed to make but 1 mouthful of the whole, then roared again. Again the king put his question. "My hound is still hungry," was the reply. Then he had all the food of his elephants and horses and so on brought and given to him. This also he finished off all at once. And then the king had all the food in the city given him. He swallowed this in like manner, and roared again. Said the king, "This is no hound. Beyond all doubt he is a goblin. I will ask him for which reason he is come." So terrified with fear, he asked his question by repeating the first stanza. "A black, black hound, with 5 cords bound, with fangs all white of color. Majestic, awful mighty one. What makes he here with you?" On hearing this, Saka repeated the second stanza. "Not to hunt game the black hound came, but he shall be of use to punish men, usurers, when I shall let him loose." Then said the king, "What, huntsman? Will the hound devour the flesh of all men, or of your enemies only?" "Only my enemies, great king." "And who are your enemies?" "Those, O king, who love unrighteousness, and walk wickedly." "Describe them to us," he asked. And the king of the gods described them in the stanzas. "When the false monks, bowl in hand, in 1 robe clad, shall choose shaven head the plough to follow, then the black hound I will loose. When sisters of the order shall in single robe be found, shaven head, yet walking in the ways of world, I will let loose the hound. What time ascetics, usurers, protruding the upper lip, Foul-toothed and filthy-haired shall be the black hound I'll let slip. When Brahmins, skilled in sacred books and holy rites, shall use their skill to sacrifice creatures for wealth, the black hound shall go loose. Whosoever his parents now grown old, their youth now come to an end, would not maintain, although he might, against him the hound I'll send. Who to his parents now grown old, their youth now come to an end, cries, fools are you. Against such as he the black hound I will send. When men go after others' wives, of teacher or of friend, sister of father, uncle's wife, the black hound I will send. When shield on shoulder, sword in hand, full armed as highwaymen, they take the road to kill and rob, I'll loose the black hound then. When widows' sons, with skin groomed white, in skill all useless found, strong-armed, shall quarrel and shall fight, then I will loose the hound. When men with hearts of evil full, false and deceitful men, walk in and out the world about, I'll loose the black hound then. When he had thus spoken, these, said he, are my enemies, O king. And he made as though he would let the hound leap on and devour all those who did the deeds of enemies. But as all the people was terror-struck, he held in the hound by the leash, and seemed as it were to fix him to the spot. Then putting off the disguise of a hunter, by his power he rose and poised himself in the air, all blazing as it appeared, and said, O great king, I am Saka king of the gods. Seeing that the world was about to be destroyed, I came here. Now indeed men as they die are filling the states of suffering, because their deeds are evil, and heaven is become empty. From now on I will know how to deal with the wicked, but do you be vigilant. Then having in 4 stanzas well worth remembering taught the righteous path, and established the people in the virtues of liberality, he strengthened the waning power of Damas so that it lasted for yet another 1,000 years, and then with Madali returned to his own place. When the master had ended this discourse, he added, Thus, brethren, in former times as now I have lived for the good of the world, and then he identified the birth. At that time Ananda was Madali, and I was Saka.